Hey folks, this week I have a few exciting updates for you. So first of all, if you're not familiar, Sutro Yaro is this repository that as of yesterday or a couple of days ago will be of public domain, meaning that whatever the license is, you can adopt it, break it, do whatever you want to do with your coding agent, be the scientist. So that's the spirit here. But anyway, so to get it started, I would say I would do a git clone, and then there are a couple of other integrations, but I think just even git cloning and then going into the terminal and pulling up your whatever favorite coding agent would be for our options here. I'm going with Claude Code. But before going into demonstrating some stuff, I just wanted to catch you up with what I have been doing. So first of all, I have a longer video that is from an hour ago. It is a live stream. It's a 1 hour live stream where I go over the repository and describe how coding agents can be used for research, or rather auto research, in different various forms, or rather the benefit of using the coding agent for that purpose. I briefly describe this idea of being able to run the agent for a longer period of time rather than babysitting it in the terminal. That is when you are just basically here saying, do this and do that, that type of thing. And mainly that is possible by either trying to run the coding agent in a loop. There are different type of loops. I think I only got to describe two of them. I briefly talked about this new feature that is still experimental. In fact, it says right here is experimental, that allows your coding agent to run in parallel. And so in that video, what I ended up doing three things. So first, I added a new section to the structured workspace, and in that section, it is going to oh, there you go. Nope, that's weekly catch up. I ended up asking the agent to create a weekly catch up for us. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to ask the agent to help me confirm that the things that I learned from last week's discussion and everything happening in Telegram is true and correct. So that way to know that I've actually done my homework and the things that I want to experiment with. So yeah, so this is actually the follow-up. I think so. I'm not going to repeat myself because I will try to say this to the agent, but I will go through what I have, what are my findings here. So that's one thing. The other thing that I ended up being able to do is that, I guess, a little spoiler here is that I believe that the group, there's a suggestion of moving on to this sort of using this metric, which is a data movement complexity rather than the average reach distance, and then setting that as a bench and trying to see what are some of the outcomes of that. And so the outcomes per how the structured workspace is set up when the research agent, aka the coding agent doing the tasks, when it generates the result, it writes it into this change log. And so this change log now contains the latest finding. Some of them are interesting, some of them are surprising, but that is all for later. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to try to check if I I actually did understand what was going on. Okay, so can you help me confirm that I collected all my notes properly from last week's catch up? Mostly, I'm interested to make sure I understand why the team is potentially using DMC, data movement complexity, instead of ARD. I read the paper, and from what I understand is that it's a lot more important to be able to capture the total rather than per movement, because ARD, from what I understand, it is a metric, or rather a way to measure LRU. I don't know. Tell me if anything that I'm saying makes sense. So this is what it looks like when the camera is not on. I use very primitive language, not really as scientific as it would be, partially because I would like to see if the agent can actually correct me, if it can actually provide me the right context. Yeah, so So this is what's going on. I have verbose mode on, which basically allows me to see the thinking trace of the agent in the background. So oftentimes I can catch it that it's not doing the right thing or it's not reading the right information. And so that allows me to actually reformat or restructure the workspace so that way it ends up doing the auto research rather than one click at a time type of research. Okay. So while this is sort of going on, I just would like to share with you a couple of other things that has been added. So let's see, let me go back here. I think I already did mention that we have the weekly catch up. Okay, so all right, says good. I've got a full context. What you are getting is right. The core difference is indeed about total versus per access. ARD is an average. It tells you an average. Mm-hmm. So and so. DMC is a sum. It tells you what is the total. Where to tighten up your understanding. So this is the agent preparing me if I was to present to you guys. So this is what it looks like oftentimes before recording the video, but I wanted to include that meta part just to see what it would look like if you were to do this yourself, and if you were entirely clueless like the way I probably am right now. Okay, so ARD is related to LRU, but it's not quite a way to measure LRU. Okay, I'm glad that it caught that. ARD uses LRU stack distance when you react piece of data. How deep in the LRU stack has it sunk since the last use? ARD then averages. Okay, so that is what is going on here. Practical takeaway from meeting number 9. I assume this is the meeting from March 16th. The team switched to DMC because ARD was giving misleading ranking. A method could look great. I can't even read. How am I even supposed to perform this research? I don't know. Okay, so your intuition, it is more important to capture total rather than per movement, is correct. That's exactly the argument. That is the important part. I took away one thing that was important. Okay, so now I'm going to try to see what are the tasks that are remaining from my earlier session. So that's how I usually try to do things in, let's say, in parallel. Okay, can you check what are some of the tasks that I performed today? I think somebody tried to submit a new result on the DMC, and also I recall that there were some remaining tasks that has to do with setting up an RLM or shaping the problem to be some type of bench. Am I recalling that correctly? Again, I'm playing dumb here because I just want to see if the agent can do these things. But yes, I actually created these GitHub issues in which it includes a lot of these sort of tasks, and some of the other tasks that were actually solved are already considered to be solved. You might ask, how is this possible? In that earlier video, I described how I have the GitHub CLI set up locally, and the coding agent is able to kind of expand its scratchpad to use the GitHub repository and share notes with other people. So for example, Andy ended up adding a new PR in which it makes the entire repo runnable on NixOS. So that was one of the things that was introduced, and that I was entirely able to do that communication through the GitHub issues and PR. Okay, so this is a follow-up. It says after the merge, fix DMC on the RL bandwidth question. Yes, you are recalling it correctly. Issue number 19 is still open. Prototype sparse parity as RL eval. This came from Yaroslav's suggestion in Telegram about wrapping the challenges of RL environment for companies like Anthropic and Prime Intellect. The idea is that our 33 experiments. So it is kind of conflating some information here because I introduced that 33 experiment thing, but I don't know. So that's where like things get a little bit tangled up. You want to make sure that you're not 100% buying into what the agent says. But yeah, anyways, that is, I hope that was informative. And yeah, and you can even ask like, hey, what are the files for running the DMC if I wanted to rerun it again? So just to make sure the files do exist, if you wanted to rerun them again, there you go. Those are the files. That's the new bitch that's introduced and including the results. All right. I hope that was useful. Enjoy. Talks.